What is going on, guys? Today I have a very fun One Piece topic coming at you. I'm going to be discussing my personal top 15 One Piece quotes. Like I said, I have 15 of them, and I will start with the one I think is the worst, I guess, technically the worst. They're all still amazing quotes, and then I will work my way up to the very best one. You guys may be surprised on some of the ones that are on here because, I don't know, I am just a weird human, and I like some of these, and a lot of people probably don't. And at the same time, you might be thinking that, you know, some of these I have on here you would put on, but you would expect me not to. Mainly the 14th one will probably really surprise you guys. So, alright, let's just get straight into this shit. Coming in at number 15, I have, how can I protect my ambition when I can't even protect my captain? I absolutely love this quote. The first time I heard it, it was just music to my ears. I was like, yep, this is just high quality Zoro content right here, to be expected from him. I can't really say that it really like applies to anything huge in life. I mean, I'm sure you guys could come up with something, but I just think it's a great Zoro quote. Like, it really defines his character. Not to mention, this is the first real time that, you know, despite everything we'd heard from Zoro in the past, he even disclaims at first when they meet that he'll become a pirate, but his major ambition here is to become the world's greatest swordsman. So if Luffy becomes king of the pirates along the way, that's great, but that's not really his priority. However, here we see for the first time that Zoro says, fuck that. I mean, yeah, I want to become greatest swordsman, and they're probably going to happen at the same time, but the most important thing that I could possibly accomplish is getting Luffy to become the Pirate King. And in this particular case, he realizes the only thing he can really do is sacrifice himself. So it's just absolutely beautiful. I mean, really, he drops like 5 one-liners here, but this is the best one, in my opinion. And I don't want just every single quote to be Zoro. So I have like 2 or 3 from Zoro. Coming in at number 14, I have Thank You from Portgas D. Ace. This, again, is probably the one that's going to surprise a lot of people, because why would I even have an Ace quote on here? And why isn't it like that, you know, he's saying he's dead or something? I mean, this is like it's the last thing he says, so it pretty much is. But that's not what I'm going for here. Despite everything I dislike about Ace, I actually thought that this was a fantastic line. Even if I don't like how he had gotten to this point, at the very least, I can appreciate when somebody seems to have lived a fulfilled life with all the odds against them. I mean, I will say, while it's not like the worst life ever, even though he acts like it was, he was dealt some pretty shitty cards just from his birthright. I mean, it wasn't particularly awesome life, and he just kind of dealt with it, did some stupid things, but at the end of the day, he did what he wanted to do most of the time, and he was pretty much happy on his deathbed. So yeah, I do despise him as a character, but I can always appreciate when somebody is at the end of their life and they have really come to realize that they've lived it without regrets and they're pretty much completely fulfilled. Number 13 goes to, you can't get back what you've lost. Think about what you still have. And that's paraphrasing, but I mean, you know, we're going from Japanese to English anyway, and I'm sure as hell not going to use the dub version. So that's the best way that I like to see it put. This is, of course, Jinbei speaking to Luffy at a critical time in the series. I mean, Luffy has just faced opponent after opponent who not just outmatches him, but, I mean, like, there's no fight at all. We're talking pre-time skip Luffy here against, like, Bartholomew Kuma and Kizaru and all the admirals, actually. I mean, just ridiculous opponent after ridiculous opponent who he stands no chance against. And it's just like, he's screwed, you know? His whole time in this world, he had just massive amounts of confidence. He thought he could overcome anything. But then he just got his ass beat nonstop for pretty much, I guess, 2 days, really. It wasn't actually that long, but it was pretty bad, and he doesn't know what to do now, and Ace is dead and everything, and he's like, well, fuck. And he just can't help but want to pretty much die, I guess. And Jinbei's like, yo, dog, you really need to see what's going on here. Everything is unclear right now because you're going through so much pain, but you need to think of what you still have. And because of this badass line from Jinbei, Luffy is able to think of his friends that are still alive. They're not dead. He is like, yeah, I guess Ace is dead and everything, but I mean, I still have them. Like, I can't just abandon them, right? It really was a very critical moment for Luffy, and I'm very happy that Jinbei was able to make some power plays here. Coming in at number 12, I have, I can have food or drink spilled on me or even be spit at and I'll laugh it off. However, if for any reason you hurt one of my friends, I won't ever forgive you. This is something that I think I try to myself, even though it's very difficult, and just in general, people should try to live by in life. It's just the maximum amount of humility, despite this guy pretty much being a god at the time. I mean, we don't really know if he was a Yonko at this exact time. He might have been, he might have not been. Some people are very adamant where they stand on this. Some people are like, yep, 100% he was a Yonko, and some people are like, no, I could guarantee he wasn't. I don't know. I just don't know. But either way, despite being extremely powerful, he doesn't care if people just make fun of him. Pretty much that's what it's saying. Just, he doesn't really get hurt by humiliation. He'll just laugh it off with them. But, you know, I mean, if someone is going to hurt one of his friends, which I do very much agree should be one of the things people consider most dear to them, then he's gonna fucking annihilate. And while I've always had trouble, as I know most people do, getting the first part down, you know, just laughing it off anytime something funny happens to you, I've pretty strongly agreed with and lived by the idea if somebody hurts one of my friends, and that sounds pretty dramatic, but you know what I mean, then I'm not going to be very happy with that person, to say the least. So I really enjoyed this quote when I saw it for the first time, and it was pretty much immediately after I got into One Piece, because it happened extremely early on. So yes, fantastic quote. Coming in at number 11, I have "It's possible that everything in this world happens for a reason" by Silvers Rayleigh. This quote did not mean too much to me originally because I didn't really understand what it meant. I mean, I remember my mother used to always tell me this pretty much throughout my entire life. She always used to say, well, you know, everything happens for a reason. I thought, well, that's stupid. What does that even mean? Of course everything happens for a reason. I mean, that's just obvious. But it wasn't until pretty recently that I really understood what that saying means. Pretty much what I believe it means, and I've seen something like this happen in our world. No matter what goes on in your life, if you want to do something, the universe is going to try to help you make it happen. It's not going to make it easy for you, but it will present you with opportunities and help along the way to achieve whatever you're trying to do. Maybe other people have a completely different take on what exactly that means, but that's at least how I perceive it. And, you know, just thinking about that in the last year or two, I've really kind of had that idea in my mind, and it's really helped me do a lot of things that I've wanted to do. So that is a huge quote for me. Coming in at number 10, the big top 10 is, "There is a time when a man will not run from a fight. That time is when his friends' dreams are laughed at," or Nakama's dreams are laughed at, however you want me to translate that. This quote was absolutely awesome and badass the first time that I saw it. It's very similar to the Shanks one, just the second half of it. However, this one comes from Usopp when he is just getting absolutely smoked in a fight. I mean, really, it seemed as if he had no chance of winning it. Just look at his goddamn face if you want to, you know, go look this quote up real quick and watch that part. It's fantastic. I loved it so much. I mean, this guy is the guy that runs away when pretty much nothing's even going on, and he's getting absolutely torn apart here, and he just stands up and is like, you're done. Like, I am going to destroy you. You just did the stupidest thing you ever could have possibly done, which was make fun of Luffy's dream of becoming the Pirate King, which is pretty outrageous at this point in the story, but he doesn't care. He doesn't care at all. He gets up and absolutely annihilates these goons. This is the kind of quote that makes me wish that I could have gotten in some kind of like fight in middle school or something when everyone was still edgy and it was still cool to be like that, and I could have been put in a position where I could have like dropped this line and it would have been cool. That is what this quote makes me want to do. Coming in at number 9, I have "The weak can't choose the way they die," which I have to say I do take a little differently when I'm applying it to the real world. I mean, sure, it makes sense to be phrased that way in the One Piece world, but I think it would make a lot more sense if we wanted to take something from it, to have it phrased more like "the weak can't choose the way they live," because that's kind of what motivates me a lot of the time. I mean, I think, you know, in One Piece it makes sense to die, especially when we're talking about law and pirates and shit, because, yes, it makes sense. I mean, especially since the Dote actually originally comes from Dofi. However, if we're talking about the real world, for one thing, you pretty much never die. I mean, the only time you die is like when you're old. You don't get killed or anything. So it makes more sense to say live, because if you do become strong, you know, strong, whatever that word means, I guess. I have my own idea of it, like strong-willed, I guess, and maybe you've built yourself up decently financially or something along those lines. If you do become strong in our world, then you can choose the way you live. You don't have to just live a shitty life, you know, not really having many friends, not having much money or anything, just not really being able to do much, because you're weak or whatever. So because of that kind of quote, I always think of it in the back of my mind. I think, well, you know, I really need to pump out a video, because if I don't, then I mean, what am I going to do with my life? I'm going to be stuck doing the thing I've always been doing, which is pretty much nothing. You know, I might as well pump out these videos and maybe it will take me somewhere. So that is the way that I like looking at that quote, and I think that it's awesome. Coming in at number 8, I have people's dreams never die. This is a very, very important part of One Piece, in my opinion. It is actually from Blackbeard, which is pretty crazy because he's like, to some people, going to be the final boss, and he's kind of, you know, a really bad guy. I mean, he killed Ace, and he's caused a lot of problems for Luffy, but I think that he actually does drop a lot of really good one-liners, and this is probably the best one. And I think in the context that it was taken out of, it really does seem very similar to this world now, even though it was actually a pretty long time ago this quote was originally dropped. But I mean, I've come across so many people that think that you can't really dream big anymore because of the way, at least in the US, I don't know about other countries, I think most first world countries are pretty similar to this though, that because of the way the system works now, where you go to school, you go to college, you get a degree, and you just get into a normal job, you know, there's no real way out of it, and really, you shouldn't try to get out of it. You should try just doing that because that's the right thing to do. But I say fuck that. I mean, for one thing, I don't even see really the point of college if you're just going to get a 4-year degree that has nothing to do with anything. But that's just my opinion, and that is for another day. However, I really dislike the people that think that and think you shouldn't dream big and try to accomplish great things, and there happens to be a lot of them. And every time I hear this quote, that's exactly what I think about. So if I can give any advice to my viewers, then let me say this. If you do have some massive dream, but you just feel like you should try and go for the easy route, you know, go to college, whatever, get your degree, make maybe a little under a 6-figure job or something like that, I don't know. I mean, if you have a dream, then I don't see any reason to not go after it. I guess you can do whatever you want. You know, you could go for that other route. However, I think you will end up living your lives with a lot of regrets. And definitely, if you are considering it, do not listen to other people if they tell you it's not possible, because anything is possible in this world. Jeez, this video is getting a little dramatic. I might need to tone it down, but these quotes only keep getting better and better. I mean, come on. Coming in at number 7, I have, compared to the righteous greed of the rulers, the criminal of this world seem much more honorable. When scum rules the world, only more scum is born. I don't really have too much to say about this particular quote, especially because I don't think that it really applies to at least my life. I'm sure that there are a lot of countries that are similar to this, but I really don't know of them at all, so I can't really say too much on that. However, I like the way that it applies to the One Piece world, and I've always thought the kid is going to end up being one of the most fascinating characters in the series, so I thought it was worth throwing in here. Coming in at number 6, I have, a man only truly dies when he is forgotten. I have mentioned this many times now on this channel. There are only 2 parts of One Piece where I actually had any kind of tear coming to my eyes or anything even within that realm, and one of them is at the very end of the Chopper arc, very close to the time that this quote was dropped. It had such an absolutely massive impact on me, and I came to realize very quickly that this was going to be one of the greatest series I ever started, and look where we are now. I love this quote so much because what I feel like it's telling me is that I need to accomplish a lot in my life and build very strong relationships so that once I die, it really won't be over. I'm not truly going to die because I'm not going to be forgotten. And, you know, it really just ties in perfectly with the very, very important part of this story, which is Roger's death. He even says to Rayleigh, "I'm not gonna die, partner." I mean, he really is never gonna die. No one's ever gonna forget him. He started the greatest pirate era of all time. Just think about how often people mention his name in this story, and how often people's ambitions lie completely where he wanted them to be. To say that he is just dead would be not true in the slightest. On to the big top 5. I have a Fujitora one. If you lose credibility just by admitting fault, then you didn't have any in the first place. I love this quote. When I saw this for the first time, I had to just jump out of my seat. I was so taken aback. It was so legendary, and I can definitely apply this to the real world. All the time, I want to say this to people. Just all the time, I have these people that I talk to who are just completely wrong, and they just cannot admit it at all. They just, no matter what happens, they cannot be wrong. They're willing to say anything anything, they're willing to do anything to just either justify how they were in some way or really not at all because they can't admit that they were wrong. I want to say this to people all the time, which I don't because, you know, I probably wouldn't have any friends if I did, but it's just so great. I mean, come on. If you can't admit that you're wrong, then what are we even really talking about? If you can't admit that you're wrong in the first place, then you're now in the wrong for that as well. So you might as well just admit it, guys. I swear I come across so many people who can't admit that they're wrong. And believe me, I understand that it's hard. It sucks to admit when you're wrong, but people really need to get better at it, in my opinion. Coming in at number 4 from the big bad Dofi, I have justice will win, you say? Of course it will, because the winner will become justice. To be honest, I don't really entirely understand why this quote was placed in this story. I mean, let's be real. You know, this is not like Oda came up with this. This is something that's dropped in a lot of different series. But, you know, it's still good that he put it in there, I guess. But I don't really understand how it fits into One Piece, considering that pirates are kind of just the bad guys. I mean, you know, Luffy's cool and everything, and there are a lot of crews that are meant, you know, they're made of decently good people, but the vast majority are just bad. And I mean, I guess the world government isn't too much better, but I don't really think that, you know, whoever won in Marineford was going to be looked at as justice. Despite that, though, it still is an amazing quote and most certainly rings true in our world. There are so many wars that have been won by dictators or just evil countries and whatnot, and because of that, they are the ones that get to write the history books. I mean, just think of Modern Warfare 2 at the very end. That was a legendary quote. I loved it. Pretty much, long story short, history is written by the victors. Coming in at number 3, I don't even have too much to say about this one. I'm sure you guys were anticipating it, but I have from Nico Robin, I Want to Live. Like I was just mentioning about the Chopper arc, there was one other time in One Piece that there was some kind of tear or something coming to my eye, and this was without a doubt when Robin said, I want to live. This was just at such an absolutely emotional point in the story, possibly the highest emotional levels of the entire story. And Robin, who just really up until this point has always been, you know, keeping to herself and not really expressing what she wants to do, and she was even saying she just wants to die after all this. Luffy is just like, no, absolutely not. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to declare war on the world to show you that you're not going to die because we're not going to let you. And then after that, she just can't handle it, and she finally expresses for the first time what she wants by saying that she wants to live and begs them to come save her. At the time of me seeing this quote for the first time, Robin was probably in my top 3 favorite characters, so I mean, it goes without saying, this had to be in my top 3 quotes for sure. It's just too legendary not. Coming in at the number 2 runner-up spot, I have, when the world shoves you around, just shove it right back. That is a Zoro quote if you guys are not familiar. I'm sure a lot of people are surprised as to why this one is so high. It doesn't really seem like that great of a quote, but I think it is absolutely critical, especially in today's time. I swear, there are so many people who seem to believe that life is just supposed to be easy and shit is not supposed to happen. Like, everything should be good, and if something bad happens, that is just pure evil and shouldn't have happened in the first. I mean, yeah, I guess it does suck that bad things have to happen, but that doesn't change the fact that they do. People need to understand that shit happens, and really, they can only make you stronger if you can overcome anything that happens. If you can just shove it right back at the world, then you're golden, you're going to become stronger, and you're going to become better as a person. To quote Napoleon Hill, all adversity plants a seed of equivalent advantage, which is pretty much what I'm getting at here. If you are able to overcome these trials that are given to you in life, they can only make you stronger and more prepared to take on the world and have less shitty stuff happen to you. Instead of people trying to hide in their safe spaces and just be afraid of bad things happening to them, they should just say, let's go. Fuck you, I'll take you on. That is the mentality that I think people need to have more often. And coming in at my absolute number 1 favorite quote in all of One Piece, I think you guys are going to think I'm trolling when I first say this, but let me explain myself, and hopefully you guys will have a really good outlook on this quote. Here it is. Let's say there's a chunk of meat. Pirates would have a banquet and eat it, but heroes would share it with other people. I want all the meat. When it all comes down to it, this boils down to one of my just really core ideologies, I suppose you could say. Pretty much when I want something, I'm gonna go after it. And if I get it, I mean, I guess I will share it, with my friends and whatnot to an extent. However, I'm not just gonna go around and give everyone I see a part of whatever I have accomplished. Like I've said before, I think that everyone on this planet is capable of achieving anything they want to. So why should I have to share with them to an extent just because? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not a cold-hearted person. I mean, it's not like I don't donate to charity and whatnot. It's not like I just see people going through a hard time and I'm like, oh, you know what, they'll be fine. I like to help them out. I do all the time. I was this morning. However, at the same time, when I accomplish something and I am rewarded for it, I kind of just want to bask in the glory and have that reward to myself, and maybe I'll share it with my friends. I think that it is this kind of thinking that Luffy has and that I have to an extent that allows people to accomplish the great things that they do. If you can believe that if you get something that you want, then you're going to be able to have it all to yourself, then you are much more likely going to be able to accomplish that dream, and you're probably going to be doing good in the process anyway. I mean, most people don't like doing evil things, and as long as you're not doing something evil, you're probably becoming a productive member of society, which a lot of people just choose not to do nowadays. So when I first saw this quote, I knew right there that was definitely, without a doubt, the greatest quote I'd ever seen in all of One Piece, in a lot of anything I've seen. It's not the greatest quote of all time. Definitely One Piece, but not of all time. But it's very good. It is very far up there. Maybe I sound like a greedy asshole, but I don't know, guys. I'm telling you. That is my kind of way of thinking, and I've stuck to it for a long time. So, if you hate me, you hate me. But that is pretty much it for this video. That was my top 15 quotes of One Piece. Hopefully no one is, really sad because something they were thinking was missing out or something along those lines. If you enjoyed this video, remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Remember to leave me a comment letting me know what you thought about this video, if you enjoyed it, if you didn't, if there are any huge ones that I was missing. Maybe I completely overlooked them, although I looked pretty hard for these quotes, and I remembered a lot of them anyway, so I don't know. Hopefully I didn't, miss anything huge, like really, really crucial. I know, there's, the one about Roger and everything, about inheriting Will, but no, like, I don't really consider that great of a quote, especially because it only really applies to One Piece. I mean, it doesn't only apply to One Piece, but it pretty strongly does. With that all being said, I hope you guys have an excellent rest of your day, and I will talk to you on Friday.